Just to let y'all know I'm here.
Peterson, I'm here too.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. I think we have Mr. Engel on the phone, online, and Mr. Peterson.
Mr. Peterson and Mr. Engel are both joining us virtually this evening.
Okay. So
Yeah,
we have enough
this
for a
is
quorum.
this is Zach Engel.
Okay, we got six.
Yeah, we got enough for a quorum, correct? All right. Y'all about ready to get started?
Recording in progress.
Our legal staff needs to update you on a conversation from this afternoon. I will let Mr. Ducharme go from there.
Do they do it before I do my little spiel or after?
No, this is something different.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bryson. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mike. So briefly,
Can you give your name and address, please?
I could if you'd like me to, Vice Chair Bryson. I'd certainly be glad to. So I wanted to just briefly address the fact that we currently have 4 in-person commissioners. We have, permitted remote participation in meetings. However, there is a concern in my office now about the dependence on folks being online to even reach a quorum. So yeah, we would generally we would look for 5 folks to be in person to be able to take action. For the board to be able to take action. That would be my recommendation. I know that presents challenge tonight, but I want that to be clear for the board, and certainly the board proceeds as it needs to. But I just need to state that openly. I don't know if there is any opportunity for a 5th member to be in attendance. I mean, certainly we could wait for a little while, but I suppose it's probably not a possibility. And I apologize for it arising at this late hour.
Okay. I don't think we're going to have any more commissioners in chambers. So how do we circumvent that or get around that? Because,
well, Vice Chair Bryson, I would say, if you were to hear anything tonight, it's going to be recommendations. So it may, if you were to move forward with the meeting as it is, right, despite the fact that we don't have 5 folks in person, it may simply need to be noted that there was quorum was relying on online attendance as well at this stage.
okay.
So tell us what we're supposed to do. I've heard all the...
Commissioner Skeens,
Yes.
my recommendation, the recommendation of the city attorney's office would be that if the board is going to conduct a meeting, we need a 5 in person to reach a quorum. We need 5 people in person to reach a quorum.
But we don't have that.
I agree.
So does that mean, is the recommendation of the city attorney's office is that with our current situation of only 4
We
in
should not
person,
proceed to conduct
that we
business.
need to adjourn to a future date?
That would be my recommendation, unfortunately, yes. And again, the board could, that would be my recommendation, yes.
And I'll just add, talking to Mr. Ducharme, I mean, the city legal is providing advice to the commission. There is time sensitivity to the items that are on the agenda this evening. The commission is only going to be making recommendations on those items. So I think the other course, as I understand it, is that to note that we are relying upon online participation to meet the quorum, but still take action on the items this evening and move it forward to City Council. So you do have that option to do that with that notation. Am I correct in that?
Mr. Kirkman's point is well taken, yes.
So and I will note that from a process standpoint, both from our transportation and long-range staff, there is some time sensitivity to the items that are being considered this evening.
So can I ask a question? And obviously, I apologize. The reason why this day didn't work for me is I typically Wednesdays are a day that I take care of my daughter. From the city attorney's office point of view, is the quorum situation for the entire public hearing or just the vote? Any action that we take?
Well, I think that ultimately the vote is what is really, the quorum would be germane to.
Okay, so if I were to commit to being there by 6:45 in chambers, could we do this? And I'll try to do what I'm supposed to do here, and then just show up for the vote and stay online the entire time. Would that get us around this situation?
I apologize. This is Erica Glass. I'm sorry to interject, Commissioner Engel, but if we
Yes, ma'am.
cannot conduct this meeting in person due to lack of quorum in person, then I do not think I will be available to stay until 6:45 for us to meet that quorum if we will have to potentially redo this meeting at some later point in time.
No, I'm trying to avoid that, Commissioner Glass. I was going to show up so that we could take the votes. I just don't think I can be there. I wasn't going to be able to be here at all tonight. I was going to try to come and circumvent the problem if it works for the attorney.
Commissioner Angle, on the fly, I could see it as a workable solution, if it were feasible.
Okay, let me see what I can do. I'm going to stay on the meeting. The question is, presentation-wise, is this a 30-minute first? Because I've seen them go through this before. Mike, how long do we think the presentations are going to take? I don't want anybody to have to stay there any longer than they have to.
But my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, from the city attorney's office is that we should not conduct this meeting at all. Even though we have members present online, this is basically maybe have to be a redo at some point in time, which means we should do the hearing as well as conduct the vote simultaneously.
Commissioner Glass, you're understanding my recommendation correctly. I would just throw in the caveat that Mr. Kirkman stated as well, but yes.
May I also ask a question? What is the concern regarding the individuals being online versus those of us who are in person, although the two commissioners online are technically present, and I guess we could verify they are who they say they are?
Yeah, remote participation after the expiration of the state of emergency law gets into somewhat of a gray area, and once you are not talking just remote participation of some folks, but of a sufficient number where you don't even have quorum in person, it gets a little bit further down that line of concern.
Thank you.
Well, I want to interject here. It would have been nice to know this before the meeting got started.
Yes, sir.
Because we could have rescheduled or some kind of workaround.
Yes, sir.
And to get here and say, okay, and we have other meetings that we had members online to vote, and it wasn't no problem then. So,
and that, Vice Chair Bryson, I own that.
yeah. And the thing about it, I don't want to delay what's got to get on what's on the agenda for today. If we here, let's take care of business if we can. The question I have is it in stone that we cannot keep the meeting going the way it is now?
No, I would reiterate what Mr. Kirkman said, which is that, you certainly could. You could do it. It's just a question of any implication once we get up to council.
A question of what?
Any implication once we get up to council, if there would be concern at that stage about the fact that there was not an in-person quorum present.
And I guess the difference between tonight and Monday night is that we actually had 5 individuals present on Monday.
That's right. And
So that I'm assuming from a legal standpoint that is probably why the question did not arise until you see who's present or who's able to be present.
yeah, it does not raise the same level of concern exactly. But again, I do apologize for it being a sort of last-minute consideration pulled up.
My question is, when did we know that there wasn't going to be 5 people here tonight?
And this may have been my own.
I'd like to make one request, that when we have meetings and you send us out a notice, that everyone's included on that notice and they write, I will attend, I will attend, I will attend. We don't know. I called today to find out how many people were going to be seated up here because I didn't want to come in and be the only person present here, and I didn't know. So that's a problem that needs to be solved, and I think it would be by everyone saying, I'm attending, and we can see it and know that we have a quorum.
Can we consider this too? Excuse me, Ms. Glass, I apologize. Because this is a special meeting. This is not a regular meeting time. This is a special meeting that we're calling to take care of these 2 items. Could the circumstances, because it's a special meeting, take that into consideration to keep going with this particular item?
Vice Chair Brisson, I don't know that it would necessarily, it wouldn't change my analysis of the situation. But again, ultimately, I make a recommendation, right? And the board proceeds as it sees fit.
Well, and I certainly understand everyone's concern, but I guess, again, from what I'm hearing from the city attorney's office is certainly we can make the decision to move forward. However, that could have potentially some serious legal implications if it's determined that, or someone challenges our recommendation or final decision because we did not have a quorum tonight in individuals who attended in person. And if I could also make a comment regarding the notice, my position is certainly we can say in writing that we will be present, we will make every effort to be present, but sometimes there are things beyond our control, such as Mr. Engel has a child that he has to take care of, that he's responsible for, and we are volunteers and we have lives outside of this commission. Certainly we're committed to serving the citizens, our fellow citizens of Guilford County, but to be able to say that we're just going to say in writing, we will be here, and if something comes up, then that's going to present a problem. Certainly, I appreciate the advice from the attorney's office, and it's unfortunate that we may not be able to move forward, but I think we should, my position would be, I believe we should take the advice of the city attorney's office and not proceed at all this evening, although it has caused some potentially serious inconvenience for all of us.
Can we move this forward? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Could I interject something real quick? To the detriment of my marriage, I'm in a car on my way downtown right now. So if you can wait 10 minutes,
Do you have
I
that
will.
with you?
I do not.
Oh,
that
darn.
was something I offered.
Okay.
But
Well,
All right, but-
I'll be there in about 10 or maybe a little longer.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, y'all.
It-
This was, I in the doodle poll, I had said I couldn't do tonight. And so this is not ideal, but I'll be there.
If I may
Thank you.
briefly, Commissioner Engel, thank you. And again, we certainly can, wait for a few minutes for him to get here and avoid the underlying concern period.
Well, let me approach it from a different standpoint. All we are doing tonight is making a recommendation. council, regardless of whether or not this is a legal or an illegal or however you want to say it, the final approval and vote and processing is still at council.
Agreed.
So I don't think we're at a whole, it's not like this is a big zoning case. So because we know it's going forward, all we're doing is a recommendation, and council has the final say-so.
And I do recognize those different sort of parameters of the evening as compared to our usual setting, yes.
Personally, I think we need to proceed and let the presentations be made and...
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have to make a motion?
I would just say that with Commissioner Engel en route, I mean, I think the problem is about to solve itself, so
Okay.
That would be...
I'm at Allen Cornwallis.
He's on Cornwall?
Be careful, sir.
Thank you again, Commissioner Engel.
All right, I think we're going to put a hold on it right now, 10, 15 minutes.
So we'll just take a break until Mr. Engel gets here. I
Yes.
think that's appropriate. That way we won't have any confusion on that. He sounds like he's 5 minutes away, so we should be able to redo that.
But then we're in another quandary because in 55 minutes, we no longer have 5 unless we're in agreement that since it's a recommendation, 5 is not necessarily critical.
Our position was that
If I may, I can live with the presentations beginning. I think that the vote is the key for the quorum. So yes, if we need to proceed now and Commissioner Engel will be here in a few minutes.
Mr. Engel, can you hear?
I can. I'll be there. Get
No problem.
started.
I just want to, we're going to start presentations now, I think. And
I can hear and
well, so, as long as you can hear.
I've already
you're fine.
reviewed the material, so we'll be just fine.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right. We'll get started. My name is Richard T. Bryson. I would like to welcome you to the Greensboro Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Please note this meeting is being conducted in person and online. If anyone participating online needs help with Zoom during the meeting, please email Luke Carter at lucas.carter@greensboro-nc.gov. Members of the commission are appointed by the city council and serve without pay. The commission reviews all original rezoning and zoning requests from the city of Greensboro. Each commissioner normally visits each site prior to this meeting. The procedures used at all public hearings is as follows. Planning staff presents background information. Persons in favor of the request speak. Speakers opposed to the request speak. Those in favor of the request will share 5 minutes of rebuttal time. Those in opposition to the request will share 5 minutes of rebuttal time. Any commission member may ask questions once a presenter has completed their presentation. All commissioners are required to vote unless they have a conflict of interest. When the case is called that you are interested in, people wishing to speak online will need to use the raise hand function, and you will be called upon to speak in the order in which hands are raised. Please find the raise hand function under the reaction button. People wishing to speak in person will need to come to the podium. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and address for the record. Please also direct all comments and questions to the Zoning Commission. Participants in the Zoom meeting will be able to view the meeting and speak when they are called upon. This meeting is being recorded and televised on Greensboro Television Network, GTN. In addition to the telecast is being closed captioned for the hearing impaired. We have, I think, 2 items on the agenda. The first thing is the acknowledgement of absences. Do we have Madam Chair is absent and
Mr. Egbert and Mr. Alford are not here this evening. I said Mr. Alford and Mr. Egbert
Okay.
and Chair O'Connor are not here this evening.
Okay.
Mr. Peterson's online. Mr. Ingles en route.
okay, all right. Do we need to vote to excuse?
I think you can just acknowledge it would be fine.
Yeah. Do the chair entertain a motion to excuse these members from the meeting?
You just acknowledged them. That's fine.
Okay.
We don't need an official vote.
I acknowledge them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right, public hearing. thoroughfare collector street plan. Ms. Cockburn will give that presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the commission members who are here at this special meeting tonight. As Mr. Bryson mentioned, I'm Hannah Cockburn. I serve as the Director of Transportation here at the City of Greensboro. And tonight we will be asking you to conduct a public hearing and make a recommendation to the Greensboro City Council on the updated thoroughfare and collector street plan. The presentation is made up of three pieces this evening to give you some background about what the MPO, or our Metropolitan Planning Organization, does, the ways in which we engage the community in updating this plan, and the recommendations that the plan includes, and then we will transition to our recommendation and the public hearing. So to give you a little bit of background, the Metropolitan Planning Organization provides multimodal transportation planning services to not only the city of Greensboro, but much of rural Guilford County and many of our towns, including Oak Ridge, Stokesdale, Summerfield, Pleasant Garden, and Sedalia. You can see some images of the types of work that the MPO is engaged in, not only identifying long-range planning needs for our community, engaging with the community, and then delivering projects through a variety of means, both locally and in cooperation with NCDOT. So you might be wondering why we are bringing you this plan. The plan itself, the thoroughfares and collector streets, make up the network of roadways that serve our community. The plan considers things like volume and speed and roadway function compared to the accessibility. So you can see in the graphic here, it includes things like the interstate system, which are freeways and have the most volume and the highest speeds and the fewest access points, all the way down to local streets in your neighborhood, which have a balance of access, but much lower volumes and much lower speeds. The plan looks at this network of roadways and makes recommendations based on future anticipated needs, the growth of our community, and what our roadway design expectations are for future roads. The image here you see is the plan itself. It helps us in a number of ways. It implements aspects of the land development ordinance, particularly when transportation staff are reviewing projects that are being developed in growing areas of our community or redeveloped. It helps us understand what design standards are applicable in individual projects, and it helps us understand where connection points to the existing roadway system should occur. And it also helps us communicate those needs to developers as projects are being proposed so that they're not surprised by future right-of-way needs in their projects. So there are a number of reasons why we updated this plan now. The first and foremost is to make sure that it's consistent with the recommendations of our long-range transportation plan, which looks out to 2045. We also took the step of combining two former plans, the thoroughfare plan and the collector street plan, into a single document. And it reflects a lot of the changes that have occurred since this plan was last adopted in 2005. So we've built lots of new roadways, including things like completing the urban loop. It's removed recommendations that really weren't feasible to construct or no longer needed. And it's reflective of the development activity that's occurred around our community. We also, in this process, took into consideration environmental constraints so that we're not projecting the need for new roads in places where they really cannot be constructed. And then we took a harder look at the facility classifications themselves to ensure that we were being equitable and that the system at its core made sense. So this process included engagement both inside the city and with our community partners. We put together a cross-functional team of representatives from different city departments, including the planning department, our engineering and inspections representatives, our fire department, and GM 911 representatives. We coordinated this effort with the other jurisdictions that make up the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and then we cross-referenced this against other plans to make sure that we weren't at cross purposes. Our team developed an online feedback tool that included a digital map and a digital feedback loop. We did a public review period that began on February 1st and went till April 3rd. This period of review included outreach on social media, advertisements in newspapers. We conducted a virtual meeting that was recorded and posted on our website. We encouraged people to participate in the online tool, and we held in-person meetings with members of our development community to give them opportunities to provide in-person feedback. Altogether, 53 public comments were received and reviewed. You all received a copy of the changes that were made. All together, more than 400 revisions were made to this map, and that includes some items that were removed, some that were added, and then the bulk of those were really reclassifying, so making the network make sense. Tonight's request is to conduct a public hearing. We recommend approval of this plan. After tonight's hearing, we will be asking the commission to make a recommendation to City Council, and we anticipate that this will be heard in June by the City Council. On May 10th, the Metropolitan Planning Organization's Transportation Advisory Committee, which is made up of elected officials, took action and adopted this plan for the MPO area. The copy of the plan that you have at your place includes the water and sewer growth tiers and the water and sewer boundary, which are the areas that are of significant interest to the city of Greensboro. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I'm happy to recommend approval of this plan.
Thank you, Ms. Cockburn. Do we have anybody in the public who want to speak online or in person? Questions about this thoroughfare collector street plan? All right, commissioners, do you have any questions or comments concerning this item on the agenda?
When will the digital map be live?
Thank you for that question. Once City Council takes final action and approves the changes that were made, we will make the digital map available on the Maps and Apps part of the City of Greensboro's website. Those interactive maps allow you to zoom all the way down to an individual location so that you have much higher resolution than you can get with even a large scale printed map or the small versions that you have tonight.
This is a comment that not on this plan, but yes, it is on this plan. Obviously, Wendover Avenue is an existing major thoroughfare. Can we please do something about the signage to Benjamin Parkway where all the letters have fallen off and you don't know whether you're going north or south unless you're from Greensboro and you know? I don't know why that sign, but all the letters fell off.
I actually can provide you some insight into that issue. That portion of Wendover Avenue is an NCDOT route. They are aware of the problems with the signage. They have ordered new signage, and they are anticipating installing it this summer.
Thank you.
The list of reclassifications and all of that, when will that be available?
That is available now. That was distributed to the members of the commission by email. I think Mr. Carter sent that yesterday. We're happy to discuss those in more detail if you should need them, and we'll make sure that those are also available on the webpage associated with the plan.
Ms. Coburn, see public, you did a great job in this presentation. A couple of questions. You said last time that this plan was updated was 2005. It's 2023. Is there a scheduled re-update on another?
What a wonderful question. So that's something that we have discussed, having a regular recurring revisit of adopting changes to this plan. I think there were some different ideas about what might be administrative changes, and that led to some confusion about which version of the plan was truly adopted. So we are committed to having a more rigorous process that we follow to ensure the plan stays up to date.
And the reason I ask that question is because the growth of our city
Yeah.
is expanding greatly. So we want to make sure we keep up with our transportation.
Yes.
And also, where are the in-person meetings? Where were they located?
Those meetings were held here at the City Hall, and they were focused on developers and members of the development community, in part because the recommendations of this plan have such a direct correlation to their projects that we wanted to give an opportunity for them to have time to directly engage with staff, ask questions, view maps, and make their comments in both online and in person.
And the reason I ask that question too, because I will hopefully later on that staff and transportation staff will, after the NPO is adopted, will be able to go to different communities, YMCAs, churches, libraries, and share this information with the community that way, so we can reach out to the community and they may have questions we didn't even thought of. So, thank you.
Certainly, we're always open to further community engagement.
Any other questions? All right. The chair will close the public hearing to this portion. Chair, entertain a motion.
I would recommend we approve the plan submit favorable recommendation for the plan.
Second, Catherine Magid.
It's been moved by Commissioner Ingle, seconded by Commissioner Magid, that we approve the recommendation for this item on the agenda. I need to go down line and ask everybody to vote. Okay. Ms. Magid?
Aye.
Ms. King?
Aye.
Mr. Ingle?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Bryson, aye. That passed unanimously. Thank you for your time. We'll go to the next item, which is Eastgate City Boulevard Corridor Plan. Before you get started, let me read this real quick. This constitutes a favorable recommendation for the last item. It is subject to the public hearing at Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, City Council meeting. Sorry. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you, Vice Chair Bryson. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Hart Crane. I work in the planning department for the city of Greensboro, specifically in the Long Range and Strategic Planning Division. Before I jump into my presentation, I just wanted to thank the commissioners for being flexible with their time and able to meet and convene this evening, and specifically Mr. Engel for hopefully the very safe driving that was performed to get over here. So thank you for being able to meet tonight. Tonight we are here to ask the commission to hold a public hearing to consider a favorable recommendation regarding the adoption of the Eastgate City Boulevard Corridor Plan, as well as the adoption of a new activity center located at the intersection of Benbow Road and Eastgate City Boulevard to the future built form map of the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan. So before we got into the plan contents and some of the more specifics, I wanted to talk a little bit about why we chose this particular corridor. One of the main catalysts that this corridor popped out to us, the staff team that worked on this, was the upcoming Windsor-Chavis-Sunoco Community Complex project. So if folks aren't familiar, this is going to be a kind of joint state-of-the-art facility that's going to combine the Windsor Recreation Center and the Vance Chavis Library onto the Windsor Recreation parcel on that footprint. It's anticipated, I believe, in approximately 3 to 5 years, and will incorporate a large amount of city investment into the project, and it's supposed to be highly impactful and a great benefit in addition to the community. This is one of our major thoroughfares for East Greensboro, as well as Greensboro as a whole. I like to refer to it as one of our first impressions and lasting impressions, both for Greensboro but also for downtown. It's one of the main corridors that people use to get in and out of our city, and it was a big reason that we chose it. There's also a number of existing facilities, previous investments, and private investment that we can leverage and take advantage of, and can make it a little more cohesive. So those were kind of the main reasons we chose this particular corridor. So the study area itself is about 3.5 miles. It ranges from the South Elm, Eastgate City Boulevard intersection on the west to essentially the I-40 interchange on the east. The planned study area incorporates a number of neighborhoods, including Willow Oaks in the north, Old Ashboro in the south. It's generally bounded by Washington Street and McConnell Road on the north, and Florida Street to the south. The predominant characteristic of the corridor is residential, but there are a number of key institutions that we've already referenced a little bit that have a very strong presence on the corridor, and some of which are higher education facilities. The plan's geography is primarily in Council Districts 1 and 2. So one of the key things I wanted to note, and I'm sure if you all had a chance to review, popped out as you read it, that this plan, and I'm sure all subsequent plans for us going forward, are directly linked to our recently adopted GSO 2040 plan. So the objectives that are within the plan can be seen as implementation steps of our comprehensive plan. We are bringing the plan to life on a more smaller scale, specific to these communities' geography. I mentioned that there are kind of two requests here, one of which is the adoption of the plan. The second is the amendment to our future built form map in the GSO 2040 comprehensive plan. So the map on the right shows the two circles on the east and west side. Those are our existing activity centers. The one in the middle is the general approximate area of where we would establish our new activity center. The public process followed this schedule. The first thing we did after doing our existing conditions report was to engage key stakeholders along the corridor. These were primarily made up of representatives from the institutions along the corridor, including the historic Magnolia House, Downtown Greenway, some churches along the corridor, Barber Park, Gateway Research Park, and the YMCA, and I may have left off one or two. Those stakeholders were key for the public process as they kind of laid the foundation for things they would like to see, concerns that they have, and they also kind of laid the foundation for what we wanted to ask the community at the first open house, which was in December of 2021. That particular open house was via Zoom because we were still dealing with COVID at that time. Approximately 60 people joined that electronic meeting, where we got to just get a sense of what folks would want out of the process, what concerns they had. We had breakout rooms where folks would have smaller conversations. I believe there was about 5 breakout rooms, so there was more intimate conversation. It worked well over the electronic format and laid a good foundation for the public input. We had a second open house in person in May of 2022. It was held at the Windsor Recreation Center. Again, I believe 50 folks joined that. At this particular open house, we had representatives from each department stationed. They had kind of championed the different goal areas of the plan. So for instance, transportation manned our mobility or getting around table, and folks had a chance to go to these different departments and kind of ask the content experts about the elements of the plan. And then we had interactive stations where folks could provide input. The third open house opportunity we had was in September of 2022. We actually offered the identical open house, but just on 2 different days because we wanted to make sure we captured as many people as possible. I believe the total combined attendance between those two events was again around 50 folks. At this particular input session, we were asking folks to look at specific goal language to get a little more in the weeds with the plan's details. And then lastly, we had a public review and comment period that just concluded. That was a period of 2 weeks where we emailed the plan to everyone that's been involved, a listserv of over 100 people, all the key stakeholders, put it on Nextdoor, we put it on a press release. We really tried to push it and get as many comments as we could, and that was up for 2 weeks, and we have just concluded that. So I just wanted to give you all a sense of what folks were telling us. So a need for more quality, affordable, single-family home ownership opportunities. The road needs to be a great first impression that welcomes visitors. I didn't write that. I do like it a lot. Improve synergy between all major institutions along the corridor, and need more food on the corridor. So these are things that came up a lot. I picked these particular comments because I think that they shaped the plan in an impactful way. I think that you can see that the objectives in the language address some of these specific concerns that folks had made to us. So the 5 objective areas that came out of all the public input and conversations we had were housing, getting around, growth, community building, and identity. So now I just want to kind of generally walk you through the plan's objectives. On the screen, you're going to see word for word what the recommendations are. I'm going to do my best to summarize them for you to give you just a less plenary explanation. So the first plan objective of growth really talks about directing new growth to the activity centers that we have talked about. It talks about creating a stable housing frontage along the corridor while also diversifying the housing stock. We heard a lot of comments about a desire for mixed use, but all while minimizing the negative effects of new investment and avoiding displacement of current residents. That was one of the main concerns we heard from folks, and we made sure to have direct language that addressed those concerns of displacement within the plan. The next plan objective was getting around. So the main concept of this is obviously going to be mobility. We focused on providing a wider range of quality transportation options besides an automobile through concepts like mobility hubs and complete streets. We focus on better connecting our neighborhoods and facilities along the corridor, both along the corridor, kind of intra-neighborhood connections, and then across the corridor when you actually have to cross Eastgate City Boulevard. So we differentiate those within the plan because we do think it's an important, important distinction to make. And then there's also very strong language about bolstering our existing sidewalk and trail network to better connect and serve our residents in the area. The third objective area is community building. This really talks about ensuring that the new Windsor-Chavis NOCO community complex and the existing facilities we already have out there stay oriented towards the local community while they grow in regional scale. The facilities like Barber Park can draw folks from all around the county, maybe even the state, and I think one of the things that really came through from comments is folks just want to make sure they're not boxed out of these facilities that lie in their communities, even though they seem to have regional draws. And then another key concept was connecting some of these institutions that may be a little siloed or isolated, that share similar experiences and concerns. I can tell you, as someone that goes to a good amount of neighborhood meetings and community building meetings in this corridor, folks that maybe not know each other, I can go from one meeting one night and one the next night, and they will more or less be describing things that are very similar and a lot of experiences that are shared. So we thought that there would be great benefit from these folks to speak on a more consistent frequency through some type of regular meeting board of some sort. The fourth objective area is about housing. It's really about empowering our residents to take advantage of and more effectively use our city housing, neighborhood, and development resources, things like our first-time home buyer, better navigating our code compliance processes, and just letting folks know about the tools and how to better use them and to benefit them. This particular goal works very closely with the growth objective to create a stable housing frontage along the corridor. And one of the other things we commit to is recommitting to past initiatives along the corridor, such as our redevelopment areas and our reinvestment areas. So there are a number of redevelopment areas like Old Ashboro and Willow Oaks that lie within the corridor's geography. There's also a reinvestment area as identified in our recently adopted housing plan, Dudley Heights. And with those, there are city-owned land that we should focus on prioritizing investment in these communities. And then the last plan objective is identity. This really speaks about wayfinding and wayfinding and branding along the corridor through art and different approaches. There's, as we've mentioned, that this is, maybe one of the first roads you come onto in Greensboro. So having folks have that lasting impression, know where they are, know why this area is rich in history and why it is significant. And there already is existing signage out here, so we definitely use the wayfinding plan that was recently adopted as a reference to help bolster the signage out here and to better highlight all of the area's richness and history that it has. And then opportunities to better highlight who the corridor is through art installations at strategic locations is also one of the key recommendations of this section. How will the plan be used? Primarily, it will be used as a guide for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So in an ideal world, a community member would come to you and say, this is our plan that we have done. Here's the decision you are making tonight. We just want y'all to consider this work we have done that expresses how we would like to grow. It will help with capital improvement planning and funding decisions. And then, to me, most importantly, as a tool for the community to advocate for changes they would like to see. So again, we're having the public hearing to seek a favorable recommendation regarding adoption of the Eastgate City Boulevard Corridor Plan and the adoption of the new activity center located at the intersection of Bimbo Road and Eastgate City Boulevard to the future built form map of the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan. If we receive a favorable recommendation this evening, I believe the council date we would be going to after this is June 27th. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that is all I've got for y'all.
Would you go back to the last screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Crane? I'm confused about that second bullet, that we are to recommend adoption of a new activity center. Was that not done when we approved the zoning for that whole complex?
Well, it's more than the individual lots that, and I'll let Mr. Kleck speak more to that, or Mr. Crane, but it's the activity center will cover a larger area than just the recreation facility, which is what the rezoning was for.
It's the circle on the map that
Correct.
that you need approval on.
Yeah, and also the date for council is the 20th, just to clarify.
My apologies.
All right. Is there any persons from the public who would like to make any comments or ask any questions concerning this item on the agenda? Do we have anyone online? If not, we'll close the public hearing portion of this part of the agenda. Commissioners, do you have any questions or any comments? I have one question. Mr. Crane, good. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I got two questions. I lied. You said the tentative date for the city council is June 27th.
I put
tentative
because
20th or 27th?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Is it 20th or 27th?
It is the 20th. I put the wrong date.
Okay.
My apologies.
All right. Any other comments, any questions? If not, the chair entertain a motion.
I would move that we favorably recommend the plan.
Been moved by Commissioner Engel to favorably recommend the plan to City Council.
And the activity center?
Yes, I'll say both items, I assume,
You
in
need
that motion.
both items.
Both items. If you want me to read it, you need to put it back up. So I would recommend that we favorably approve the adoption of the Eastgate City Boulevard Corridor Plan and the adoption of a new activity center located at the intersection of Bimbo Road and Eastgate City Boulevard onto the future built form map of the GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
All right, been moved by Commissioner Skeen. Now we'll take a roll call of votes. Commissioner Maggot?
Aye.
Commissioner Skeen?
Aye.
Commissioner Glass?
Aye.
Commissioner Engel?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Bryson, aye. That passes unanimously. This constitutes a favorable recommendation and is subject to a public hearing at the Tuesday, June 20, 2023 City Council meeting. Thank you, Mr. Crane.
Thank you.
All right, any items from the Planning Board?
No, we have no items.
Planning
for the
Department,
commission.
sorry.
Yeah, we have no items for the commission. and that concludes all the business on the agenda.
Any items from the Planning and Zoning Commission members? He was included. Mr. Alfred is out of country. Alfred was included too.
No, the absences this evening are Mr. Alford, Mr. Egbert, and Chair O'Connor, and that was noted earlier, yes.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions and comments? I want to publicly say thank you, Mr. Engel. Thank you for sacrifice. I appreciate it, sir. God bless you. Thank you for staff for coming out, for being here, and thank you for everybody for working so hard. All right. We'll call the meeting to an end. Adjourn.